Hello and welcome to another episode of. In this episode, we get to discuss how Kaizer Chiefs successfully snatched the tag of the Black Sheep yet again after falling short in Egypt on Sunday. While we also take a look at how Sundows and Stellenbosch kicked off their CAF campaigns in style with important wins at home. We also take a look at how our man Rulani and his MC Algier side also did in terms of their CAF competition. We all remember that they're in the same group as Sundown, so we take a look at all those dynamics for the next couple of minutes. Just give me a couple of minutes of your time and let's see how much of that we can get through. Yeah, I think there's no better place to start really, rather than Egypt. Of course, Kaizer Chiefs lost 2-1 against Egyptian side Masry in their opening game in the CAF Confederation Cup. In terms of the group stages, of course. After going down following a penalty conceded by Bradley Cross, Dylan Solomon's produced one of his best moments in the Chiefs shirt. A solo run, good finish as well to level up the game before Kaizer Chiefs fell asleep to concede another goal at the death in a set piece. Inasho Miguel getting much of the criticism for that goal. So the final result being 2-1 and AmaKhosi walking, or rather flying back to South Africa with no points. But I think a 90 minutes full of learning for Kaizer Chiefs. So of everything that Kaizer Chiefs, number one, the game wasn't the best game to watch, and I don't think many expected it to be a free-flowing game in North Africa, especially for Kaizer Chiefs. But the game was never flowing, of course. It was more a battle, a physical battle. No team could string 7 to 10 passes together without losing the ball. Therefore, it became a 50-50 throughout the game. So the game could have been won by anyone. And by anyone, I mean Chiefs could have won the game as well. Masry are not a team. Well, they're nowhere near the level of Alahi or your Pyramids or your Zamalek. I think they are a beatable team. So I think Chiefs will look at that and feel very, very disappointed at the fact that they couldn't capitalize on the low quality of opposition that they faced in Egypt. But I think two things contributed to how Chiefs lost the game. Number one, for me, is the midfield conundrum. It's been a main, or rather one of the main subjects for the longest time. It's Chiefs don't have a midfield three that they can rely on every single game. Although we've seen the two coaches try to establish a sort of double pivot and a 10 with Mdu mostly leading the line in terms of the midfield, but they don't have a reliable three that they actually believe in. So yesterday the game, or rather Thabo Cele and Oxumteta actually played with Mdu again at 10. But I think the reason for the inclusion of Ucele, who's been somewhat out of the loop for a couple of weeks, was so Kaizer Chiefs could establish that sort of control, that sense of ball possession, but that never materialized. So now there's a lot of questions around why that may be the case, and that has been happening not just in this game as well, but in previous games for Chiefs, where yes, sometimes they would put up a performance good enough to win the game, but they would not necessarily be able to control and dominate opposition and play them off the park, and that exposed itself in Egypt against a team that was looking for a fight rather than a total football session, you know. So yeah, Chiefs failed to control the game and therefore could not create a lot of goal scoring chances and could not keep El Masry at bay with their ball position as well, and therefore allowed the game to be in the balance for too long and ended up on the losing side. I think that points to my second key factor in the game for Chiefs. I think a lot has been made in recent weeks about Chiefs' inclusion of the likes of Paseka Mark or Thabiso Munyane, who've Thabiso Munyane, Lebogang Maboe, players that have played continental football before with either Orlando Pirates or Mamelodi Sundowns as well. I think a lot has been made for, or rather about that, and how they are going to help this Chiefs side in terms of CAF experience. But when none of them are on the field, it's very difficult to actually get those messages across sometimes. When you look at that game, you put Sundowns in in on the field with the same opposition. I think they play a very different game. You put Orlando Pirates on the field with the same team, different game as well. I think Stellenbosch would have played a very different game as well, but we're going to touch on that later as well. But when you look at essentially the type of performance that was required there, um, North African teams are notoriously known for wanting to fight, for wanting to keep games in the balance, and not necessarily, like, they don't put that much emphasis on dominating teams and playing them off the park. So Kaizer Chiefs actually played into the hands of Masry on the night. I think that's exactly the kind of game that Masry would have hoped for. They would have wished for a win going into that game, and Kaizer Chiefs just naively uh, played the type of game that would have suited the home side more, and therefore their lack of experience. You would expect a player like Inacio Miguel to be the one to provide that sort of leadership, to provide the sort of guidance on the continent, but in the end, he makes one of the biggest mistakes of the game, to lose the game for Chiefs. So I think two key points for Chiefs to consider when coming back to South Africa. That midfield definitely needs sorting out. There's a lot of options. You still have your Kosimpile Ngobo on the bench. You still have your Spesihle Ndlovu on the bench. Maboy was on the bench as well. So there's quite a few options to rotate and be able to blend to find the perfect balance in the middle. And for as long as they don't find that, I don't see them winning any other trophy this season, essentially. And maybe this is part of a very important lesson that they're going to learn in terms of continental football. And maybe this is a lesson that they're going to take forward, and hopefully they can bounce back against Zamalek next Saturday as well, because they are back on the continent with their game against AmaKhosi midweek postponed. So Zamalek will visit Polokwane this week, and hopefully they will take these lessons into the training week and hopefully rectify them against the Egyptian Giants on Saturday. And then you move on to the Brazilians, Mamelodi Sundowns, of course, dispatching the somewhat recent Orlando Pirates rival, Saint Lupopo Eloy of Congo. What can you say about that Sundowns performance that hasn't been really said about Sundowns in the past? I think if you look at Lupopo and the two games that they played with Orlando Pirates, I think we all knew to some degree that probably Sundowns had more quality than them. It was all just about managing the game and understanding the moment, which Sundowns have perfected over years in the CAF Champions League. Another person might say, but they haven't won it yet. Yes, but they have more experience in the CAF Champions League than Saint Lupopo. They have more experience than Orlando Pirates, for example. So you look at that performance and you think, I don't think Sundowns ever looked in trouble. They dominated Lupopo from start to finish. Perhaps there was a blip in their performance slowly after scoring the first goal through none other than Nuno Santos, their new Portuguese recruit. So maybe they had a blip in terms of performance and conceded that goal just before half time. But from there, from the moment that second half started, you knew Sundowns were going to come back that sort of invigorated again and provide the necessary performance, more especially at home, with a lot of other difficult battles to come on the continent. I think when you look at Lupopo, we saw all of their frailties against Orlando Pirates. Yes, of course, that home win against Pirates in Congo was, for more than anything, it was a contribution of a lot of external factors rather than matters on the pitch. And we saw and we know that when you put South African teams on a pitch with Saint Lupopo and it's just purely football, they're probably going to win 9 out of 10 times. and we saw them concede 3 goals at Orlando Stadium. So it's no surprise that they conceded 3 goals against Mamelodi Sundowns as well. You see Sundowns dominate possession as they always do, create chances, split defenses, and all of that is just signs. I think Sundowns are the strongest team in this group. Of course, you have Sudan's Al Hilal. You also have Rulani's MC Alger to come. But when you look at in terms of CAF pedigree and everything that is required to be able to go on a good run in this competition, I think Sundowns are best suited more than anyone. A lot of people can question their style of play. A lot of people could question the tempo in which they play with now, and whether it resonates with the club and whether it resonates with the supporters, and what the management, or whether the management is still in touch with what the Shushan and piano of the club actually means. That's a different discussion. But in terms of getting results on the continent, Sundowns are the team to do that, and they've done it over the last 10 years as well. So 3-1 win. They top their group after the opening day. I think one of the many bright sparks for Sundowns on the day was another fine performance from Nuno Santos, the new number 10. A lot of people, or rather even the coach, has said that Santos is not the Lucas Ribeiro replacement. And he doesn't look like the Lucas Ribeiro replacement if you look at him. Another person might say, no, but he has that much influence in the team. Yes, but he has that much influence differently. I think they're two totally different players. They operate in different zones. They do not so much the same things on the pitch. While Ribeiro was your winger, false nine, who liked to carry and move people out of the way in terms of dribbles in a more Brazilian style, Nuno Santos almost operates in a much more deeper role. He likes to be the passer rather than the finisher. Of course, you see that sort of European quality in terms of understanding timing on when to burst into the box, which is how he scored his first goal. But in a general sense, you can tell that he doesn't like to operate in the same style that Lucas Ribeiro obviously operated in the last 2 seasons. So he's a very different number 10 to what Sundowns have already on their roster. Technically efficient, of course, superior vision. He just makes things look easy, man. And for him to get 2 goals and an assist in that 3-1 win will go a big way for Coach Mikel Cardozo, but also for him in terms of settling in South Africa and being that key man as Sundowns try to get yet another CAF Champions League title on their cabinet. So yeah, a fine week for Sundowns, a fine week for Nuno Santos, a fine week for Coach Mikel Cardozo, but not such a fine week for Coach Roland Mokoena and his MC Alger side. Of course, MC Alger played on Friday. They played Al Hilal away, and were unfortunately on the back end of a 2-1 defeat, somewhat controversial defeat as well. A feisty affair, which ended in a brawl, essentially, out in Sudan. So, yeah, not that much, or rather, not a great start for Coach Rulani, and which puts pressure on his Sundown side now. I think they face or on his MC Alger side rather. I think they face Sundowns next. So that's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting how Coach Rulani and his Algerian side are able to navigate these 2 fixtures against Sundowns and and Saint Lupopo before the AFCON break. Of course, they've had a wonderful start in terms of the Algerian league. I think they were unbeaten in 13-14 games. So for them to suffer this defeat in the CAF Champions League, it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back from that. So good luck to him, and hopefully we see a fantastic game when he faces his former side as well. And then finally, Stellies. Yeah, man. I feel like Stellies is everyone's second favorite club on in terms of South African football. they don't have a lot of supporters, but they have a lot of admirers. They have a lot of people that like either the way that they play, the youngsters, their coach. They're just that sort of club, man. They everyone's favorite second club. Yeah, so they played their opener in an empty, embarrassing, in an empty Peter Mokaba Stadium on Saturday. And yeah, not the most, again, not the most pleasant games to watch, not the most entertaining. Yeah, man, I think if you're Coach Stevie Parker and you look at that performance, you think last season Stellenbosch would have played better games, they would have performed better, they would have been more entertaining, um, but probably not get the results. But this time they did. After a long battle with, I think it's Angolan side Augusto, they finally found the decisive goal. I think it was in the 86th minute or 85th, but it was a late goal, and it was provided by a man who hasn't scored for the club, I think, in over a year, Ashley Cupido. So I think that could be a very important game for Staleys, in terms of refining themselves. Of course, they haven't had the best of starts in the league. I think they're at the bottom. Well, not the bottom, but they're in amongst the relegation candidates at the moment. So I think this win not only goes a long way in helping them qualify for the knockout stages of the CAF Confederation Cup, but also could help them in terms of confidence, in terms of domestic affairs as well. Uh, yeah, man. Again, not the best of performances. But when you look at Stellenbosch this season in comparison to a Kaizer Chiefs, for example, uh, another person might have said, but Kaizer Chiefs don't have a fantastic performance as well, but they lost, so Stellenbosch won. So, I mean, football isn't that linear, but when you think of Stellenbosch and all the lessons that they would have learned last season, in the CAF Confederation Cup, it would have been for these types of games and for these types of moments, and for them to not put up the best of performances but still secure a very important home win, because your home matches count for everything in terms of CAF competitions. So for them to be able to collect those 3 points, um, be joint top, I think they're second in goal difference now. So yeah, that was a very important win for Stellenbosch, and for them to be able to use that sort of experience they would have garnered last year to secure this win would be a huge tick for Steve Barker and for the club, and just for them to be able to understand that sometimes they will not be the swashbuckling Stellenbosch that we know, but they'll still have enough quality, whether on the field or off the bench, to be able to get the requisite results. So yeah, man. Congratulations to Stellenbosch. Congratulations to Mamelodi Sundowns. AmaKhosi. Hopefully you bounce back next week. And yeah, we'll check that out when it happens.